Happy April Fool's Day, ladies and gentlemen, all in crypto here, and welcome back, guys, for what is going to be nothing short of another jam-packed daily market update. The uncertainty continues and rages through markets. We're going to look at some comments from Larry Fink that says almost everyone he talks to is more anxious about the economy than any time in recent memory. Now, that includes the events of 2020, when they literally locked everybody down. And actually, in regards to economic policy uncertainty, this is reaching a similar level to what we saw at the height of lockdowns. Is that warranted? And I actually have looked at sentiment and how this could be one of the big factors that drive the continuation for the markets that we're very much expecting. I understand the uncertainty around what Trump is doing. I think it has a positive resolve, though, certainly for the United States and the companies that reside within it. In fact, oil is giving us a lot of confidence on that. We're going to look at what Warren Buffett has to say on the recent stock market crash, or pullback, as we would term it, in line with the pullbacks that we've seen thus far. We will be looking at the stock market, Bitcoin, etc., etc. Then we're going to be diving over to BlackRock's new letter, 2025 chairman letter to investors. They talk about both Bitcoin and tokenization. Then we've got news on how Americans can now invest their retirement funds into crypto. They may not be retiring anytime soon at this rate. Hell of a lot to get into, as always, guys. Join me in this presentation on Friday. It's going to be a big day because we've got non-farm payroll. Today, I think significantly, certainly for Europeans out there, we did get inflation numbers come out, CPIs, and they came out at 2.2. That's getting ever closer to their 2% target. And unemployment dropped. We've got not CPI, but statistics for the United States today, later on today, and of course on Friday, which are going to be the big ones. A lot of uncertainty right now. Let's start off with Larry Fink's comments because we looked at the graph that we just showed yesterday. He is saying almost everyone he talks to is more anxious about the economy than any time in recent memory. Now, is that warranted? And given that uncertainty, and we'll get off Bitcoin and we'll look at the S&P, the S&P is still, certainly as far as its pullback goes, within the realms of normalcy. This is a 10% pullback. Now, can it cascade into something more? Yes. But this is still a normal pullback despite the high levels, or some of the highest levels, March 2020 levels of uncertainty. Now, any kind of a change in that, moving towards the more certain, I think is going to see markets do unbelievably well. We're going to be hearing more from Larry Fink in just a second. It's our opinion that the S&P is still in an uptrend, and that you're likely still going to see continuation on the back end of it. Just my opinion. Could I be wrong on that? Absolutely. However, we shall see. And I still think Bitcoin looks good. Certainly taking the draw off of Bitcoin. This is a great place for it to support and for us to see that continuation. And we'll do a longer, just me and the camera video on this. If you look at how inauguration periods, post-inauguration periods take place, and what do I mean by that for anybody that's not familiar with what inauguration means? It's when the president essentially takes office, Trump in January. But if you go back since 1985, every post-inauguration period, so typically January, February, March, into April, sometimes into May, is met with the S&P 500 selling off as a new regime takes office and often gets their harsher policies implemented. And then you see continuation of the markets broadly. And we're following that playbook today. I am far, far more bullish on Trumpomics than I think many other people are out there. I think that's very unpopular. That doesn't mean I'm a fan of tariffs. I'm not. I'm against tariffs fundamentally as a kind of free market libertarian. However, I do think that actually what he's doing with tariffs is a lot more strategic. And I don't think their plan is to crash the economy. What I want to do now is look at some comments from Warren Buffett, who, of course, is one of the greatest investors of all time. It's because he understands really the great game that is being played upon us, and that is what they're doing with the monetary supply, which Bitcoin was created for. And we'll look at some comments from BlackRock on all of that in just a second. But let's hear what Warren Buffett has to say about this recent stock market sell-off.
Let's talk a little bit about the fact that the market's down almost 800 points this morning.
Yeah.
Concern for you?
Well, no, that's good for us, actually. I mean, we're a net buyer of stocks over time. And just like being a net buyer of food, I expect to buy food the rest of my life, and I hope that food goes down in price tomorrow. So when stocks are down, we're going to be buying on balance. And who wouldn't rather buy a lower price at a higher price. People are really strange on that. I mean, because most people, most of your listeners are savers, and that means they'll be net buyers, and they should want the stock market to go down. They should want to buy at a lower price. But they have that feeling that they just feel better when stocks are going up.
I've been the biggest fan of Buffett, and you can only but sort of marvel at his success from an investment point of view. But what he says there is very interesting. People are strange, and they are strange. You know, people always feel some kind of way. It's hypersensitive to us in the cryptocurrency space when the markets sell off. But understand what you're trying to do. For me, I believe that this technology is going to fundamentally change the world in much the same way that the internet did. And any technology really that came before it, you know, that could be the invention of the engine or something like that, and how that's implemented itself into our everyday life. And this technology is on a similar trajectory. I truly believe that, certainly as it relates to the financial. The very evolution of money is going to be run on distributed ledger technology. And there's two kinds of people really out there. There's people that understand that and look at this as an opportunity, as I do, or there's people that you know, just can't sort of stomach it and feel some kind of way towards it and kind of spiral as a result of all of that. And hopefully this channel can kind of help you navigate that a little bit and stay focused on the kind of prize that is in front of us. But an interesting take from Buffett there. He's actually kind of optimistic about the pullback, which I think is, you know, I share the same sort of sentiment towards it. BlackRock just yesterday released this. This is a new era for investing. Read Larry Fink's a letter to investors to learn more. We'll dive over to it. There was a lot of interesting things here. One was the new kind of portfolio allocation. It's historically been, and your financial advisors have taken billions of dollars off you for just essentially sticking to this playbook, and you could have done it yourself. They've basically gone 60-40. So it'd be 60% equities, 40% bonds. And then you've got that kind of recessionary hedge in bonds and some sort of yield-bearing instrument. They're now talking about a 50 equities, 30 bonds, 20 something else. And it's going to be very interesting to find out what that something else is. And they're also talking about opening up private markets. And that's, of course, going to all be enabled by distributed ledger technology. But interesting takeaways to this was, can Bitcoin eat away at the US dollar's reserve status? The US has benefited from the dollar serving as the world's reserve currency for decades. But that's not guaranteed to last forever. The national debt has grown to 3 times the pace of GDP since Times Square's debt clock started ticking in 1989. This year, interest rate payments will surpass $952 billion, exceeding defense spending. By 2030, mandatory government spending and debt service will consume all federal revenue, creating a permanent deficit. If the US doesn't get its debt under control, if deficits keep ballooning, America risks losing that position to digital assets like Bitcoin. And this is entirely why Bitcoin was created. And I think all part of a greater plan. And the fact that BlackRock are highlighting this is, quite frankly, unbelievable, given how long I've been in this industry for. To be clear, I'm obviously not anti-digital assets, far from it. See the next section. But two things can be true at the same time. Democratized finance is an extraordinary innovation. It makes faster, cheaper, and more transparent. Yet the same innovation could undermine America's economic advantage if investors begin seeing Bitcoin as a safer bet than the US dollar. And it is. And actually what Bitcoin has revealed to us is the fact that the emperor truly has no clothes. But this has always been the case. Bitcoin is essentially just a newer, shinier housing market or stock market or gold. You know, we've already had alternatives to a proliferating, enslaving fiat system, and Bitcoin is just the kind of newer chosen, I guess, Trojan horse to usher in whatever's around the corner. We'll leave that because we're looking at this rather objectively than biasly. But tokenization is democratization. The world's money moves through plumbing built when trading floors still shouted orders and fax machine felt revolutionary. Here we go. This technology is fundamentally going to change the world, guys, and don't take your eye off that prize and take on what Buffett said there. It's interesting that people feel the kind of way they do when the markets sell off. Of course, it's natural. You're going to have that natural reaction to your portfolio. But if you've done your due diligence, you're into the right plays and the plays that you think are going to enable some of what BlackRock is outlining here, there's a bright future ahead of you guys. Take the Society of Worldwide Interbank Financial Communication, SWIFT, its system that underpins trillions of dollars in global transactions every day, and it works much like a relay race. Banks hand off instructions one by one, meticulously checking details at each step. That relay approach made sense in 1970s, an analog era, when the markets were much smaller and daily transactions were much fewer. But today, rely on SWIFT feels like routing emails through a postal service. That's a very good representation by BlackRock, or analogy by BlackRock there. Tokenization changes all that. If SWIFT is the postal service, tokenization is the email itself. Assets move directly and instantly, sidestepping intermediaries. What exactly is tokenization? It's turning real-world assets, stocks, bonds, and real estate into digital tokens tradable online. Each token certifies your ownership of a specific asset, much like a digital deed. Unlike traditional paper certificates, these tokens live securely on a blockchain, enabling instant buying, selling, and transferring without cumbersome paperwork or waiting periods. Every stock, every bond, every fund, every asset can be tokenized. If they are, it will revolutionize investing. Markets wouldn't need to close. Transactions that currently take days would clear in seconds, and billions of dollars currently immobilized by settlement delays could be reinvested immediately back into the economy, generating more growth. Every stock, every bond can be tokened. I mean, come on, let's be cheery. I understand that the price action for the cryptocurrency space is somewhat trying. But if you can get through the other side of this, and again, price is selling off kind of a good thing, depending on how you look at it. There's an unbelievably bright future ahead of us. Let's now talk about what Senator Tuberville is now introducing in regards to a bill to allow Americans to invest their retirement funds in crypto. I think you should be able to do whatever you want with your retirement funds and how you invest it. Be conservative, I would say. Let's dive into this.
The Biden administration just hammered the American people with regulations, and tomorrow I'm dropping a bill called the Financial Freedoms Act, and it allows families and individuals to invest their retirement funds into crypto. Now, President Trump has become the crypto president, and we want to help him with this. This will be something good for everybody. Diversify. This is a free country. Do what you want with your money, but the Biden administration, they didn't want anything to do with crypto.
And we're seeing an undoing of all of that. It's very interesting that price is selling off just as they're getting ready to kind of unleash this industry. Could be somewhat deliberate. Let's talk about a little bit of price action. So let's first of all go back to the S&P. I'm really not that worried, to be honest. Yeah, it looks awful, but it can pick its feet up from this. It truly can, but it needs to do so rather soon. Ultimately, I think you've got something similar to what took place over here going on. We need to see that resolution, and that needs to come rather quickly. When it comes to Bitcoin, this is still a pronounced uptrend in my opinion. We've got lots of technical targets. We've been right on all our technical targets thus far. Let's see if we're going to be right into the future. And there's a lot of other things that, for the sake of time, we're kind of not going into. But if you want to take your journey a step further, do consider becoming a patron. Tomorrow I'm going to be giving an update, and I'm going to be... We've got the vast majority of our portfolio very right in terms of a lot of it's still hundreds of percent up, despite being in the doldrums of this pullback. There's a little bit of it I need to change. Get on board with that and attend tomorrow's meeting. I'll be doing a full overview. Ladies and gentlemen, that is it from me. Bright future ahead of us. Never forget that. Always understand what this industry is fundamentally doing and the fact that you are a pioneer as far as an investor is concerned. People are going to look back at this time right here, right now and say, wow, what an amazing opportunity. And it perhaps doesn't feel like that right now, but hindsight is always 2020. I think Warren Buffett summed that up quite perfectly. That's it from me, guys. I'm going to love and leave you. Thanks for watching. See you all soon.